Ba, ba, da. God, this is such a good song. It's hard to believe that this is the thing that really brought me to YouTube in the first place. I mean, I've literally made hundreds of reaction videos live for the past year, and it's all because of the first time I ever heard Ghost Love Score.
Also, having a huge mouth doesn't hurt.
No way! Those onsets? That was so cringe. I had no idea what I was doing. After digging into Floor's vocals and learning so much about Tuomas' music and the history of Nightwish over the last year, there are tons of amazing details and nuance in this performance that I want to dig into more. But at this point, it just feels like the door's closed. People are gonna call me a fraud if I do it again, won't they? Like I'm farming views or faking excitement, right? I mean, I don't want to completely plan out my reaction and analysis. That's boring for me. And at the same time, I listen so much closer when I'm making a reaction and analysis video on Twitch. Is there some way to like find the middle ground? I mean, what's the worst that could happen if I just made a reaction?
Hey, my name is Charlie Collada. I'm a professional singer and voice teacher. I make content on Twitch and over on the Big Brain Singer channel on YouTube. And today, I'm going to do something a little different. So Floor Jansen, along with the band she currently headlines, Nightwish, has absolutely exploded in popularity, probably as the result of the rise in people watching and making vocal coach reaction videos. And here's why. Floor has an amazing voice, a once-in-a-century ability, objectively. Since the first time I watched her sing and made content about her, I've also watched her vocal masterclass videos where she explains her technique as well as commented on her best and worst performances. Now, while I don't sing anywhere as near as well as her and even in her genre at all, I've always been fixated on how a performer with objectively amazing vocal technique has the power to inspire millions of people and anyone who listens, quite frankly. So as an homage to Nightwish, one of their most prolific performances ever, and as a celebration of my first ever vocal coach reaction video on YouTube, published 1 year ago today, this is going to be a special anniversary re-reaction to Ghost Love Score. So, sit back, relax, let's hit it. Nightwish performing Ghost Love Score at Wacken Open Air 2013. One of the amazing things about this intro specifically is that Tuomas follows a compositional pattern. We call it in classical music as an overture. There are those rhythms that we hear at the entrance. Dun 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 dun. That comes back later. All these musical elements have an emotional, poetic correlation to them. So they're themes that relate to certain ideas that may not be expressed exactly in the text, but will relate to the poetry in a more subtle way. So it adds an extra dimension of the interpretation that doesn't need words, right? The music is set in a certain way that it's a universal access point for us as motive listeners. Now, any musician who performs live understands this and understands that even if you're not singing, the musical line, the harmony, everything, especially the rhythm in this case, adds an emotional layer to how this piece of art is perceived, right? Let's keep it going. I'm having like a flashback, no duh, to the first time I listened to this. Flora does an amazing job of creating contrast in her performances, in that every single song has a timbre that fits the emotional purpose perfectly. Everything is so perfect in the beginning for this narrator. There's love, there's swimming together, moonlight waters, it's calm, it's easy, and there is foreshadowing, but it's not giving away what's going to come. In fact, it's performed in a way, because it's so easy and calm, that sets us up for more excitement in the future. Now, what's even more impressive is that she's keeping that really refined, virtuosic, subtle, mixed voice timbre while the entire band is like going ham behind her. And if you've ever sung with like a karaoke track, or if you've ever performed with a band before, you understand how impactful that music can be on the way you create sound. But true, amazing, impactful technique is a technique that is not changed by your circumstances. So no matter how intensely a band is playing behind you, no matter how awesome the guitar sounds, no matter how intense the bass line is, the drums, everything that's percussive, right? So the voice is not percussive at all. Everything that's percussive happening around the voice should not impact the singing. The voice isn't a percussion instrument. And if you treat it like one, it's gonna wear out. But she treats it just like what it is. It's a wind instrument. It acts as almost like a violin with the bow. Now that's a string instrument, but the same concept applies. It's a linear motion with the air flowing through the chords. She's creating support, as she's talked about in her masterclass videos. Support comes from down here. The jaw stays completely relaxed. And then you can play around with resonances. That's her toolkit. And that's what she does in this song perfectly. That's what I think it's so popular and so revered by so many different vocal coaches and different people who do commentary on it, because she really employs her full palette of musical characteristics. And this intro section is just like one small timbre that we don't hear anywhere else really. We don't hear anywhere else in the piece, but it sets us up to have this awesome journey ahead of us. Intentionally, Flor goes up into this headspace a little more, because if she wanted to add any more grit or timbre, she would go more into that full belted position that she talks about, you know, the curbing, right? An overdrive. She would have to go into overdrive to hit that part of her register. Now, knowing the amount of support that takes, looking at her face, looking at the emotion there, you know, she's doing an awesome job at keeping her face passionate and in the story, while also letting that voice go to this relaxed space without using any emotion in her throat. The thing that amazing technique will allow you to do is create emotion on your face that does not impact any of like those pivotal singing muscles. So it's not gonna engage your jaw. You see no emotion happening in her jaw, right? No engagement there. No engagement in her throat either. Obviously she has like a band around her throat as part of her performance costume, but there's no tension coming into her throat. That's the result of the emotion. All the emotion is happening up here, which for singers, amazingly, you know, conveniently, I'll say, this is the place where you feel that resonance happening. So in fact, if you combine that sensation of resonance, that sympathetic resonance that a singer like Flor uses, right? She uses a style that relies on the kinesthetic perception of resonance. You know, you feel it in your chest, you feel it in your face, and based on where you feel that sympathetic resonance, that's how you make your artistic choices, right? It's like painting with sensations. Flor has that emotion up here. You know she's feeling that resonance up above. She's engaging her core to make it happen. Perfect setup for an amazing like introduction for this piece, because she shows all of her tools off the bat and everything is just gonna explode going forward. Into the Blue memory, right? I have some ideas for this poetry, but we have to get to the end to kind of dig into them. But all we're seeing here is a very devoted love, right? A very devoted emotional connection with someone else, with this forbearance, with this promise that if you hurt me, I'll bleed forever, right? This love is so deep that anything that comes out of it negatively will be traumatic, right? It's a universal idea, and you can apply that to so many different concepts. And I think I'll dig deeper into what this poetry really means in another video, but for now, we'll just leave it at that.
Siren from the deep came to me, sang my name, my Lord. Still I write my songs about the dream of mine, worth everything I may ever be. The child will be born again, that siren carried him to me. First of them true loves, sitting on the shoulder of an angel without care for love alone.
So again, a different timbre, right? She's using a more conversational, more clear, again, on that spectrum of belty to classical, right? You can call it 100 different technical names, right? Every voice teacher has their vocabulary for it. This is definitely more towards that belty side, more conversational. You can understand her words a lot better because of all the poetry in this piece, this verse, this section, right? It's 2 verses, but this section about the siren and the child that the siren brings is the most exposition. It's also the most vague, right? It's the most kind of symbolic, most artful, metaphorical section, right? There's nothing that's pedantic about this poetry. It's expositional. She's like narrating this story that we're hearing these words, they're rolling off her tongue, she's singing them so lovely, and they're in that chesty area, and we think it's gonna culminate in this more exciting section, the way she treats it. Check this out. So right before, as she finishes singing about the child, easy, conversational, sweet, singing on the shoulders of an angel. Dig in, dig in, dig in, dig in, and then pull back off, right? She grinds into that chest voice, right? So any singer at this caliber who sings this way has control over the flexibility of the sound. The sound is always going to be some ratio of chest voice to head voice, never pure in either direction, because that affords them the flexibility to dip into either timbre, right? If you are learning how to sing and you are thinking that, oh, I just need to get all my chest voice together and then I need to train my head voice, right? That's not going to get you as far as just singing with the full voice all the time, objectively, right? And that comes from her approach, which is very similar to the classical approach of using air. And what that allows her to do is things like what we just saw. And then Empu takes over and just gives us a little bit of repeated, it's almost like Empu does a duet with her, with the guitar. He takes the melody over and just keeps going. So good. All right, not gonna lie, this is one of my favorite parts. The choir comes in. The choir is so pertinent. It's so important here. Here we go, here we go. Let's go, Yuka. Let's go, Yuka. Yuka, let's do this. I think a lot of voice coaches, voice teachers, people who make reaction videos on YouTube surrounding singers gleam over this interlude so much. But it's almost like a do-over. We start getting new themes in the string section. We get these kind of this sea, this ocean of different musical elements. We get the oboe, the bassoon, there's the chimes, there's that flute melody that kind of comes out of nowhere. Everything is kind of swirling around itself, and yet it presents materials for the next set of music in the same way that the introduction presented materials for the entire song. And when you're listening to it and you're really in the story, right? You're hearing about these two lovers swimming together in moonlit waters, a siren coming from the deep and changing the life of this narrator forever, committing him to this art, right? This dream that is worth everything that they will ever be, right? It's this mystical, magical world, and yet there are these themes of love and deceit that are just swirling around, and nothing's happened. There's been no drama yet, right? And so creating this very even, cool life, then followed by this narrative of interesting symbolic things happening, and then just kind of letting us go into this musical sea, this swirling idea of musicality. It like leaves you suspended. It leaves you hypnotized, right? But it sets you up perfectly for the next section. Fanfare, let's do it. All right. Yes. Okay, so this section, I've always listened to it. It's the most grounding part of the piece. It's the most empowering. Something happens in the story before this point to set our narrator on this like path of determination, of kind of like unwieldy power. Tuomas sets this in a really interesting way. He uses a Viennese waltz, that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 pattern with an emphasis on the first beat. This is something that Johann Strauss, back in like the mid 1800s, made his entire career off of Viennese waltzes. And it's just this really motivating dance rhythm that you feel. So when we get out of this kind of wash of orchestra in the interlude section and hit this waltz, this very firm da 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 da, with these lyrics that are inspiring. Bring me home or leave me be, my love in the dark of the night. Lost the path before me, the one behind will lead me, right? And then that's repeated twice. It's the repetition of the exact text is very representative of the belief that this narrator feels, right? It's almost like an overcompensation, missing the tenderness of that first verse, that tenderness of love. It's almost like that's gone. All this, like it's like a power waltz, right? That's what it feels like. And it's like this drunk with energy, drunk with passion, but almost forsaking the love that was before. All right, let's just keep listening. It is what it is. All right. Okay, I'm gonna pause every verse. Just live with it. Now, in addition to what I said poetically about what's happening in that waltz section right after the interlude, what Flora is doing vocally, again, is ramping up the energy and humanness of her voice. Right? One reason that I personally believe, as a voice nerd, as a vocal person, that Flora is a perfect match for Tuomas's music is because the music he makes is so much about universal themes, connections between nature and humanity, and the duality there. Flora's voice suits that idea perfectly. There's that duality, that belty timbre, that curbing, that overdrive that suits the human side of things, the raw emotion, the unwieldy, raw humanness that is similar to speech, right? Most of us speak in a chesty voice. I'm no exception to that. But as we speak and as we communicate, it's easier to transmit text with a chestier, more compressed sound. She's using that to tell this story of the human rage that comes from the experience of the narrator. It changes the interpretation of the poetry. It influences it. It colors it. It adds a new dimension to it because she adds so much humanity into it. Now, I think a lot of us know what's going to come up next. And using this idea, I think it'll be interesting to see how that's interpreted, right? Through the lens of Flora's multicolored voice. The Valkyrie Goddess. So musically, right, spirals into this minor key. Right, so this is still part of that waltz. It's gotten a little disjointed. Okay, but we're still feeling it. She's feeling it. She's got those windmills going. It's sick. Spiraling into out of control, right? Power. Going between minor and major in this very strict rhythm, but then there's that one little spirally measure. Da 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 da. Right? It's losing control. The character is losing control. The lover, went on this rampage, this unyielding, unwieldy, emotive aspect, right? That lived life inspired by what was before, but not looking forward. And they are now the adoring beast asking for forgiveness. Maybe, that's my interpretation. But going on, we'll move on to the bridge. So sick! Ugh. It's my favorite part. We've been going this whole way. Flora's been doing an amazing job at digging into the human side of her voice, that belty quality, that powered, more compressed sound, right? And out of nowhere, it explodes into these beautiful, lofty, classical onsets. Right? I love that sound. She is a symphonic metal singer through and through. She does the belty, poppy, rock, heavy vocals. Not as intensely as a lot of screamy singers, but she also takes that operatic lofty sound and takes it to an incredibly professional, impressive level, right? And that's what these onsets are. It adds to the intensity of that return of that 6/8, 6/8, 5/8 rhythm that creates that manufactured musical anticipation for what's to come. It disjoints us as listeners. And she adds her own voice to that on the return to impress upon us that we couldn't escape it. We couldn't escape the imbalance that was caused when the narrator cut and therefore will bleed forever. Tuomas has brought us full circle to where it all started. That disjointedness. You can't live in an even 3 pattern. You can't live in an even waltz forever. 1, 2, 3, 1, dun 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 dun. Right? It has to jump ahead. There's imbalance in our hearts, in our minds, in our bodies, in everything. We can't force ourselves to be in balance. You have to create balance the natural way. That was deep. Okay. Anyway, back to the music. We're going to be back to that original material that took us on that journey in the first place. That sound is the same exact sound that we make when we're literally crying and sobbing, right? The human instincts, yawning, right? Crying. The instinct we have when we feel like we're choking on something and our throat tenses up. The instinct we have when we are underwater, out of breath, and we need oxygen, right? All of those instincts play a vital role in the vocal process, at least the way I teach it. What Flor does here, she uses that timbre of the cry. She uses that timbre and energizes it with an amazing breath support technique to create this feeling of pain. This face. It sums it up perfectly, right? But now we're about to return to that first material that set us up in the first place to go through this journey, because there's no escaping it, right? If you cut me, I will bleed forever. All right. Okay. There's no way to define that final belt other than the musical equivalent of the line, "So I'll bleed forever." It's an amazingly resonant, chesty, mixed, high resonant belt with so much power behind it. You can see literally that her teeth are all showing, her entire top row of teeth. They're resonating outwards. She's using those resonators. The sound is going up and over, not just straight out. Her jaw is completely relaxed. She's supporting that sound. She's completely open. The voice is working. It's supported. There are like Olympic level ab muscles engaged there to support this sound. Every time I hear this song, it does something to me. It's just the purest, most absolutely beautiful story. It has everything for everyone. If you're a vocal nerd, if you're a voice coach, if you're a singer, Floor does everything for you. If you're a music fanatic, if you love Nightwish, if you love Tuomas's music, it creates that amazing emotional sensation. All of that combined, unreal. What's more important to me is the fact that I get to listen to amazing music and talk about it with you guys. You've given me a platform to do this over the last year, and I am incredibly grateful. So thank you. Starting another YouTube channel just in case the other one gets shut down. Woo!